Welcome to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast with your host, Brandon Seigel. I'm a published author, speaker, entrepreneur, and private practice strategist dedicated to transforming the way that healthcare functions. This podcast is all about empowering you to create the change you want to see. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. So in this episode, I'm bringing in the great Jamey Schrier. And today, what we want to talk about is this idea of the practice freedom mindset, from overwhelmed operator to strategic leader. And, Jamey, first and foremost, thank you so much for being part of this. I'm really excited that you're here. And when I think of you and I think of all the things that you're doing in healthcare, and really all different specialties of healthcare, you're helping practice leaders unlock new mindset. And I find that most of the time, what we're dealing with is a mindset dilemma that is holding back action. But why don't we start with, just for the sake of our audience today, why don't you give a little background, kind of how you came to today and how you're helping private practice owners everywhere?
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Brandon. I appreciate you inviting me on. And yeah, I mean, look, I'm a former private practice owner, so I've been where most other owners are. And when I got into business, I was really good at being a clinician and taking care of people. And it was probably 2 years into it, when I started to hire other people, that I started to realize that people don't think like me. They don't show up when they're supposed to sometimes. They don't do the extra things that you as an owner do. And it really started to weigh myself down. And so much so that it affected my home life, affected my health. I mean, the anxiety and the stress and the pressure of being an owner is real. And most people that are not owners don't understand that. And then eventually, I was just like, that's enough. I mean, I can't keep going like this. There's some things that happen, which I know you and I are going to talk about. But that's when I started making an investment into this world of business, the business of physical therapy. And I did that for several years, trying stuff and reading and following what coaches of mine would say. And I started to figure out a few things that was really something that I didn't anticipate when I started to do it. But it allowed me to create a business that didn't require me day in and day out, grinding away, hustling harder, working harder in the clinic itself. And I created the life that, at the time, the life that I wanted, that I was like doing all of this for, that allowed us to deliver great care, allowed me to have a great team, and also the time to, enjoy my family. So I shared that on some, podcasts and some webinars, and people started reaching out to me, and I kind of accidentally fell into this coaching place that I've now been doing for 13 years, which is my absolute calling, and I love it. So a little bit about me.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And, it's so interesting because there's coaches everywhere. And a lot of the coaches are philosophical coaches. They haven't necessarily walked through fire, so to speak. And what I love about you, and for those who don't know, Jamey is one of the few consultants, coaches, and coaching organizations that I primarily refer out to. And I do this because what I love is that Jamey is trying to get you to another trajectory versus just putting out a fire. There's a lot of coaches that they're firefighters. They specialize in literally just making you feel good about solving a fire, but they don't actually elevate you to another gear. And I've seen Jamey take 6-figure practices, turn them into 7- and 8-figure practices. And I think it does start with, how do you shape the expectations, and how do you basically, in my opinion, become the reality you want to see in your practice? And so one of the things I know about you, Jamey, is that, you nearly lost your practice to what we call a fire, and, I call it about, like, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of that crisis and how basically you became the catalyst of your transformation, because so often than not, we make excuses for ourselves. And I'd love for our audience here just to hear about kind of how you became this catalyst of solutions for your own practice.
Yeah, I think you've never met anyone with any kind of success. I don't care if it's in a sport or business or whatever, that doesn't go through challenges, that doesn't go through the best of times and especially the worst of times. And for me, I had my practice for a few years at the time. And like I said before, it was beginning to weigh on me. It was beginning to affect me physically and mentally, and anxiousness, and affect my relationship with my wife, Colleen. And I just wasn't happy. And we went for a rare getaway weekend, and we were coming back, and my wife got a call, and she said, "It's my dad. Jamey, I think your business is on fire." And without hesitating, I went, "Good. I hope it just burns to the ground." And I mean, who would say that? Who would want their business to burn to the ground? But we drove up, and they were literally, I mean, there was a fire. There was probably 6 or 7 fire engines there. It was on a Sunday. No one was there. No one was hurt. But they were throwing my stuff out the window. We were on the second floor. They were just throwing all my stuff out. And I'm just like, wow. So I started feeling a couple things, Brandon. One thing I felt was relief. I was like, man, I don't have to go to work tomorrow. Like, I grew up in Maryland, D.C., and when there was a snow day as a child, there's no greater feeling when you wake up, you're ready to go to school, and you're like, yes, Montgomery County canceled. I felt like that. Like, part of me felt like that. And then the next day, I go home and I have to call all the patients. Sorry, our place burned down. Try to go somewhere else. I was like, well, what am I going to do? I almost became, I don't know, I didn't like what I was doing anymore. Even though I was good at it, even though I put on a good front, but deep down I was like, is this it? Just keep grinding and working while insurances pay less, while staff asks for more. I was like, there just has to be more. This is not what I want to do with my life. And that was really the eye-opening moment where I shifted to, I don't want to leave this profession. I love what I do. I love helping others. I love this physical nature of things. I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good at problem solving. But Brandon, I looked in the mirror and I said, Jamey, you have no freaking idea what you're doing as a business owner. You want to think you know what you're doing, but you don't. So you can do one of two things. You can keep trying to figure out on your own, or you can get help. And that's when I shifted. So what this really taught me is resilience, for sure, because this wasn't the only big challenge I had in my business. There's been a lot of others that we could talk about. But it really taught me that I think all of us go through wake-up calls in our life periodically. The worst ones are, I'm playing basketball with a friend of mine, true story, and he dropped down and had a heart attack. Well, that's a wake-up call. But what I start to look at now when I'm, talking with other private practice owners, and I'm like, does it have to come to something catastrophic for us to wake up? Like, or can we just see the signs that are happening and then make a decision? So that was kind of what I've taken from the fire initially, being this idea of relief, to this idea of, come to Jesus conversation with myself, to now, so many of us are getting these signs again and again and again, and yet we just keep grinding the same old, and deep down we're not happy, and it doesn't help our family, it doesn't help our staff, it really doesn't help our patients or our community, and it certainly doesn't help our profession, yet we just continue to do it. So that's kind of where, what I've taken from the fire.
Yeah, and it's interesting because ultimately it took that event for you to identify that you weren't happy, or for you to take action that you weren't happy.
It was the action. The event made the action happen. Brandon, I don't know if I'd be here. I might just right now still be grinding. watching your podcast for tips and tricks. Keep grinding away. I don't know.
No, and it's interesting because we keep using the word burnout. So much of what we are shaping is this word burnout. And I'm like, this isn't burnout. This is unfulfillment. This is unhappiness. This is doing things that ultimately don't fill our bucket. You know, it's rare, although I'm sure it happens, that we hear professional athletes say, I'm burning out. Normally it's, I love the game and can I physically, how long can I continue that? And so what I come back to with you is this idea of like, how are we shaping our mindset to create accountability on what fulfills us? How do we really hold true to fulfillment and throw out this word burnout? Like burnout's a byproduct of us not taking responsibility for what we want in this world. And so
Yeah, true. I mean, burnout, also just on that one point, burnout to me is doing things you don't enjoy doing. You don't get energy. I mean, you talk about fulfillment or happiness. I could use words like, energy, things that light you up. I've never heard someone that just loves what they do and says, I'm burned out. They might say, whew, I'm exhausted. Like there's times where I'll coach 3-4 clients in a day. That's a lot. And I'm like, I go to my wife, I'm go, man, I am spent, but I'm fired up, but I'm exhausted. I could go to the clinic, work 2 hours and be absolutely spent, exhausted, and burned out. It was because of the work I was doing and my perspective on the work I was doing and whether that lit me up and brought me joy. And I think that's the issue that so many people are having is they've either lost the joy of what they were doing and they can't really find it. So it doesn't take much to burn them out.
Yep. Yep. No, I agree. And strategically, when we look at this gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it, why do you think people are getting stuck? Like, how do we get to a point where if you're talking to a private practice owner and they're literally like, I'm stuck, what is your approach to really getting them to actually take action? Because I find I used to do a lot of coaching and honestly, I got burnt out. And I've been honest with you about this, is that as a coach, I got burnt out because the only thing I was being valued for were fires that I was putting out. And I felt that ultimately my passion came from creating, not putting out a fire. And so creating solutions is different than putting out a fire. And so how do you find you are getting people that are stuck, getting them into action so that they don't lose it all, so their best friend doesn't have to die in order for them to create change? Like, where does that mindset gap occur?
Well, there's something called emotional intelligence, and I know you're familiar with that. And for people that are not, there's 4 components of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-management, relational awareness, and relational management or relationships. And it's very different than IQ, right? EQ is different than IQ. IQ is kind of set. How smart you are is how smart you are. EQ, it can change. We can learn. And what I've recognized is that people, and there's research to support that, people with higher EQs, it's more aligned with our success, our happiness, our, as you mentioned before, our fulfillment. I mean, there's research supporting all of this stuff. So when someone says, you're talking about that gap of what they're doing, what's really going on. For me, it's about helping them create awareness, self-awareness, like what's really going on there. And so much that I get when I go deeper with our clients is there's certainly a level of fear, a deep-seated level of fear, and I think a lot of the fear comes from perfection. I mean, think about this, Brandon. We are from a very young age in the schooling, and you and I have talked about our schooling system. We can go off on that. We are encouraged and rewarded for being the best, quote, being perfect. A's, A's, A's. We talk about it. It's reconfirmed and reaffirmed in our world. And we go through school, and then we use those grades and we use all that to get into another school. So let's say it's professional school, PT school, or what have you. Same thing happens. We become really, really good at what they are training us to be, which is really good clinicians. And then we get into this world of business. No previous training, no previous anything, but we still have that ego. We have that pride. We have that high achieving mentality. And we get burned out. I hate to use the word, but we get just overwhelmed and de-energized when we are trying to create something that we really don't have the skills for. And we get to a point where we're afraid to really lean in and do what we want to do to create the life we want, because we're like, well, how do I know if this is going to work? And well, what if it fails? I've never failed. How will people see me? I'm a smart person. And you've heard the C students hire the A students who are managed by the B students, something like that. Well, we are mostly A students, and it's hard to all of a sudden be in a place where failing is actually a part of learning when we've only learned and spit out information and gotten praise on that success. So this level of fear is really big, this level of perfection. And those two things is where I initially, in the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks working with someone, begin to dive into, because you said it before, there's so much out there that can help solve problems. There's a lot of firefighters, and there's a lot of water and other things that put out fires. Those are tools and strategies and all that stuff. There's not a lack of those out there. And yet, there's still a problem with people reaching a level of success and fulfillment and happiness in their business. How could that be if we have access to more tools than we've ever had in our lifetime, and we now have AI where we can type in the problem and get an answer that's the greatest answer in the world, better than any answer I could give? So why is there still a massive problem in our profession? This is the type of stuff I think about. And the answer, because there's something deeper going on. And until we create an awareness of that, we can't keep looking outside for some magical solution out there, because it doesn't exist. Yep. So that's where the gap is. And once people come to recognize that, it actually just takes the pressure off of them, that we can then just say, hey, we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for progress. Just one step, one step. And that's where coaching really helps, because it helps guide you through this, helping you through those up and down emotions while you continue to move forward. And then momentum comes, and then results start coming. So I hope that answers that.
No, it does. And I totally agree. And I think part of our problem is, we identify our life legacy as entrepreneurs often. So when we fail, we assign, in my opinion, this outcome of we failed in life. So if I closed a private practice, I failed. And it's interesting because I talk about this is one of the things I had to do with my mother-in-law was identify what was worth saving and what was worth separating from. And rather than take it as a loss, take it as a gain. Sometimes we have to unload the stuff that's holding us back so that we can reach our fullest potential. And I guess my last question for you for this episode is what strategy would you recommend for owners to let go of some of the control? So much of what we have is wrapped up in our own identity. And I think people are so control driven, I know I am, that they're afraid to let go. And so how do you work with practice owners to really let go of that control factor?
Yeah, so there's a word that comes up a lot in the people I'm working with, and the word is reframe. Reframe is giving something a different perspective. And when people say, Jamey, nobody can do it as well as I can. Nobody can treat as well as I can. Then I'll ask them, I go, well, how are you going to grow a business when you're the only person treating? and then doing everything else. So I get them to realize that that's impossible if they want to have any type of growing business. So then it becomes, well, if you're trying to do something, you're not allowing someone else to feel the enjoyment and the elation of having accomplished something. If you're the director, no one else can be the director. If you're the therapist, no one else can be that. So I help them see that you're not helping the staff that you think you're helping by being the bottleneck in the clinic. As you grow and evolve, you give them opportunity for growth. And then I ask, is that what you want? Do you want to see your team grow and evolve as professionals? And 100% of the time, they're like, absolutely. So what it is going to take is for you to grow and evolve yourself, because no one's ever going to grow past you as the owner. Now, all of a sudden, they have a different perspective of what it is, and they start to get out of the, I have to do it, I have to be it. Then, like you said, we do have to address this idea of identity. Identity is one of the core three things that we really struggle with. When you first graduate school, I can use physical therapy as an example. When I graduated and people asked me, what do you do? I said physical therapy. I'm a physical therapist. I do physical therapy. And it was ingrained so much in my head that Jamey and physical therapist were one and the same. Well, Jamey has a degree in physical therapy. Jamey might practice physical therapy for a few hours a day, but Jamey does other things too. Jamey's also a business owner, and he's this and he's this. So too many times we get wrapped in this identity and we don't see ourselves by anything but that. So when we start to look at of what's possible in your business and where else do you want to go, it starts to allow you to embrace, well, you're also an owner. You're also, in my case, a husband and a father. And it's hard to hang on to these identities that other people put on you. You're a business owner. You're an entrepreneur. You're making this stuff happen. And you can't move into that unless you evolve and allow other people to raise up. So we talked this episode a lot by kind of mindset stuff, but it's mindset combined with practical types of things. Like, imagine you didn't have to come in to your business 3-4 days a week. What would have to happen for that to be a reality? What would you do? And then people get permission to be like, well, I'd spend more time in exercise, or I'd spend more time with my family, or doing another habit or another hobby or something like that. So it's giving people permission to do what they did when they were 5. Imagine things. We were great at imagining all kinds of stuff. And all of a sudden we got so hard and so put in this box that we just stop imagining what could be, and all we're going to use is our previous past history to determine, well, this is what I guess it is. And the people out there making something happen in business, they are breaking through those molds. Once we open up the idea of breaking through that mold and leaning into the person we really are, not the person we have told we have been, but the person we deep down know we are more than what we seem. Then it's about adding the action steps to start making that a reality. And that's what I'm doing for people. Does everyone think like that? No. Does everyone, can imagine themselves? No. Sometimes their fear or the way they've been conditioned is just too much right now, which is fine. But I think all of us have so much more than what we are capable of doing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so I want to challenge all of our audience. I want you to start to recognize that in order for you to get to the destination that you want as a private practice leader, private practice owner, investor, whatever that role is, you have to be willing to identify what you're willing to let go. And you have to build the ecosystem so that you can ultimately fulfill the destination's obligation. And rather than working in your business, we have to start to work on our business. And so, Jamey, where can everyone find you, just so that they get an understanding of how to reach you?
Yeah, well, you can always find me at practicefreedomu.com. There's something on there that's helpful for people. It's a practice freedom assessment. An assessment is basically me asking you 24 different questions about your business to get a better understanding of what's really going on. And then after the assessment, we offer a free review to kind of take you with it to help you get a plan to do something about it. Absolutely free, no obligation, no nothing. So you can get that on our website. Or if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on at Jamey Schrier on LinkedIn. Always like to connect with people there as well.
Well, I so appreciate you, Jamey. I appreciate each and every one of you who are tuning in every week. Don't forget to like us, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and more. And don't forget, together we can thrive, not just survive. Thank you for tuning in to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. I'm incredibly grateful to each and every one of you. Exciting news. We're now available everywhere, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts to YouTube or anywhere you like to listen to your podcasts. So watch, listen, and reach out. If you love this episode, please drop a 5-star review. It truly means the world to me. Are you looking for more ways to elevate your practice? If so, now is your chance. Reach out, go to my website, or email me at brandon@wellnessworksmp.com. And remember, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.